A few weeks ago, we released our 2025 Miami real estate market predictions. After we put them out there, we realized there's a lot of questions remaining unanswered. First, a lot of you asked questions, and we ourselves realized there's a chance for a deeper dive so that we can give you the tools you need to make great decisions. And today I've brought Aimee Dingwell to help me do just that. Aimee Dingwell is our Director of Marketing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sep. Super happy to help everyone explore and navigate what's happening in the market right now.
It's great, thank you. So Aimee is going to act as your advocate by asking questions that some of our clients have asked and we believe you would want to know. And I think we should get started.
Let's dive in, for sure. This is a really nuanced market. I think there's a lot happening. And I think, yes, we did do our market predictions video just a few weeks ago, but since then, there's a lot that we can sort of suss out. And I think that our clients and buyers, sellers, and even renters might benefit from hearing Sep's expertise and his take on what's happening. So I think, we talk a lot about, we specialize in condos. So let's talk a little bit about the condo market exactly, and some of the sub-markets. What's happening? What are you seeing?
Well, the condo market really is nuanced and varied based off of exactly like you said, the sub-markets. Starting with, let's say, new construction. Brand new construction, a year or two old, recently launched. What are we seeing there? First of all, whenever a brand new building gets launched, it's always interesting to see the dynamic of it. Usually people are looking to sell the ones that maybe bought 3-4 years ago under contract pre-construction. So sometimes there's an initial glut or opportunities actually for new buyers to come in and get potentially good opportunities from those sellers. And then there's also a number of folks wanting to rent all at the same time. So many times you might find that those new construction end up selling a little bit below market, at least the first handful, or renting a little below market the first year. Usually it takes about 18 months for those buildings to stabilize. Now, during the post-pandemic, the first few years of the pandemic and directly post-pandemic, none of those factors existed. Everything got gobbled up instantly. Now we're getting back to a little bit more normal markets. That's what we're seeing. When you get into the existing condo market and you start getting into buildings built, let's say before 2010 or so, around 2010 or earlier, now you're getting into buildings that are 15 years old. That means they have AC coolers that are 15 years old, roofs that are 15 years old, and so on and so forth. With the new condo laws and the inspection requirements, which are inspecting every 10 years, to have proper savings and reserves for when things need to be improved, updated. What's happened now is that those buildings are going through some updates, some renovations, with that some increase in condo fees and increases because the condo fees need to cover those savings, the reserves they call them.
Right.
On top of that, there's some special assessments that are coming for them to level up to where they want to be on a structural and safety and sort of general, major components basis. But also, those buildings want to compete with the newer buildings, so they're also adding aesthetic improvements as well. So those buildings, because of the increased condo fees and because of some of the construction that's happening in those buildings as they're going through renovations, we are seeing some challenges when it comes to the sales. There's some opportunities there because buyers are hesitating, like either in regard to the monthly costs, or they're hesitating because of maybe the construction that's happened in the building. They don't want to be there. It's inconvenient for them. So we're seeing some opportunities there, some price adjustments downward. Then you go to buildings built 25 years ago and older. That's something that's been in the news. There's certainly some extreme cases where there's these larger special assessments, and that's what ends up in the news. But the reality is that those are really extreme cases. However, they are older buildings, and some have been maintained amazingly, some have been maintained okay. And with the new requirements of buildings having to do recertifications anywhere 3 miles from the coast in Dade County, went from 40 years before to now 25 years. So now buildings 25 years and older, not just 30 or 40 years and older, have to make sure to go through these new milestone inspections, which are different than the structural integrity reserve studies, which are every 10 years. It's a lot of stuff. Just call us and we'll explain it for you. But because of that, they're also running into more than usual construction, updates, higher association fees, and so on. And that's putting further pressure on them. So if I were to say, ranking, the new construction is doing relatively better. The buildings built before 2010 but less than 25 years old are having some challenges, and then buildings older than 25 years old are having additional challenges. Many of the challenges of buildings older than 25 years come a lot from buyer sentiment as opposed to actual challenges in the building. They may be very well maintained, but there's a sense from a buyer, oh geez, this is an older building, it's going to have problems. And that's not necessarily the case if it's been properly maintained. So those challenges a lot come from sentiment, not necessarily always reality.
So back to, ages of buildings, because traditionally as we are in this new development cycle and brand new buildings are starting to be delivered, that's putting pricing pressure or could be potentially and sales pressure on what were traditionally viewed as the new buildings, which is this, age bracket of say 2015 to now. And so we have some new data from 2024 in the fourth quarter, which is showing that, that segment of the product, it's not struggling as much as one might think it is. What is your take on that?
So are you referring to the number of sales that are happening, basically?
Yes.
And the dollar per square foot and so on?
Yes, and so this is, caveat is this is for million and up sales, condo sales. This is not for the entire, all of Miami-Dade County. We focus on $1 million and up.
So. $1 million up in the coastal areas. Right. So yeah, it's very interesting because there's a sense out there that things aren't moving and things aren't selling. But when you look at the numbers, actually sales increased from Q4 this year as compared to Q4 last year. Prices increased from Q4 this year since Q4 last year. So what we're seeing is because of all this news and because of these necessities of maintenance and increased costs and so on, buyers are getting more hesitant and they're getting more careful. They're asking more questions, which they should do. And what we're finding is also because they're being more careful and a little slower to make their decisions, sellers are getting a little more nervous and a little more flexible. Buyers are getting a little more aggressive in their offers. And when that happens, and there's inventory out on the market, then you have a recipe for a buyer's market. And a buyer's market typically means buyers get a better price than they did, previously. And so the idea is there are definitely opportunities. It's not in every single property, but there's definitely opportunities where you can get a better deal than the last person or than last year, let's say. There's also, of course, a big factor which I always talk to my sellers about, which is what quality of property and product do you have? Is your property updated, upgraded, really well maintained? Is it a standout property? If it is, well, then you can stand your ground and probably get your price. But when you're talking about a unit that's built in 2010 or 2005 or 2012, and you haven't really done anything to it in those 15 years or 20 years, well, and everyone else has also not done the same, well, the buyer has a pick of the litter. They're going to pick the one that's going to give them the best deal.
What about, should we talk about the pre-construction market?
Sure,
About these different segments? A lot of discussion that maybe we've overbuilt in this cycle. Have we really overbuilt? What's happening? Is there pressure on the pre-construction market?
I find the pre-construction market very interesting, very dynamic, and very healthy. We have a whole slew of varying products on the market, varying types of buildings built for varying types of buyers. A vast majority of those buildings are built with end users in mind. Yeah. And so when you have an end user being a primary homeowner or a second homeowner, these are not speculators. And so they're building what people want. And what people want and that they're buying from those developers don't really exist on the market today. For example, we're attracting a new demographic of very wealthy, affluent buyers. And these affluent buyers who intend to make South Florida their home or live here significantly more than just a few months out of the 2-3 months out of the year, they want large spaces for their families. To find a large, luxurious, high-quality property with all the amenities you want, in the location you want, is a real challenge to do. For example, if you go to Brickell right now, you have a very hefty budget and you want a gorgeous waterfront, water view property in a new building, good luck.
No, does not exist. Product really does not exist.
Yeah. And so they go into the pre-construction, like Mandarin Orientals, the 1428 Brickles, the St. Regis Miami Brickle, and so on. And that's just an example.
Yes, there is a very big percentage of the new pre-construction product that's being delivered that's focused on an ultra-high net worth buyer who is ready to move into a residence that's very large. That just does not exist. And so I don't think that we're seeing a lot of pressure on that segment of pre-construction. But there is also another segment of that pre-construction market, which is investor product and short-term rentals. And, we cater to a lot of investors who do short-term rentals, and where are we seeing that go?
That's where there's a little bit of question marks as to potentially there being a little bit overbuilding, or maybe the market needing to catch up ultimately. There's pockets where there have been a significant number of Airbnb type properties being built, which are very attractive for second homeowners as well, though. And so those are really necessary product for second homeowners and business travelers that travel here a lot. Those are very, very well appreciated. But then in those, of course, are investors as well that buy into the Airbnb type properties. What happened after the pandemic is that Airbnb is still very healthy in Miami, but the prices and occupancy aren't hitting, they aren't staying up and growing up further along with the expenses. And the new pre-construction that's coming out is more expensive than what's existing on the market today. And when they come out, the question is, are renters, are guests going to be paying the fees they need to cover and make sense of that investment? And I would say probably just like many other pre-construction when they first come out, that for the first couple of years, probably not. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully the market catches up. For example, downtown Miami. Downtown Miami is going through an extraordinary transformation right now. Not only on a commercial level, on an office level, on a amenities level, on every aspect of downtown is changing. And downtown's going to be really the destination place of Miami, maybe apart from the beach and maybe Wynwood, that everyone's going to be looking to and coming to. But at the same time, they're putting a few handfuls of Airbnbs right in downtown. Now, there will be a need for more short-term stay places in downtown because of what's happening. The question becomes, is it too much? Is it enough? Yeah. Is it not enough? We'll find out.
Let's switch gears for a minute, because if I'm a buyer and I'm interested in purchasing an investment property in the core of, say, Brickell or downtown as a short-term rental, what would you tell me to look for? What would you tell me to be aware of?
Well, the first thing I would say is, for an investor, certainty is always excellent. So if you go to the existing properties, even though they may not be as sexy, what you're going to get is real numbers, real data, and you can make a decision based on the facts on the ground. And there's a comfort in that.
The Elzer was recently delivered, and that's a short term that's doing very well, and also get the Gale residences. So there is some brand new product to check that against now.
Without naming specific buildings, there are also brand new buildings that have come out over the past few years or very recently. And there are some challenges making the sale numbers work with the revenue coming in. And so there are actually opportunities there where you can possibly pick things up for lower than what folks may have bought for originally with the developer. And then what I would tell you as an Airbnb buyer is you would want to think a little longer term in your cash flow. Mm-hmm. and factor in equity growth, because you're buying into a city that's got a very, very bright future. We haven't gotten into reminding everyone why everyone wants to move to and live in and invest in Miami.
Still.
It's a competitive market. Everyone wants to buy here. Everyone wants to be here. And so, your cash on cash return and things like that may not be as good as potentially like a secondary city. It's also the cost of carrying here is a little higher. So it's more about buying into the growth of the city long term.
And also, I want to ask you, because a lot of these pre-constructions or products that is about to be delivered, it's not on the market. So this is something that if you are a buyer interested in that, you would be best served to talk to your agent because they're going to be going after these residences sort of in an off-market way, correct? It's not really pre-construction anymore, and it's not really on the market yet.
So yeah, certainly the advantage there, if you understand where the inventory is, both the existing on-market resale, people, their individual owners selling, and then also the developer, you can look for where the best deal is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I think that's sort of where we're at in this market right now with investor product.
Yeah, with certain properties that's happened, and then there's of course plenty of pre-construction that is still fully under developer sales, and you asked what would I tell a buyer who doesn't want, like purposefully doesn't want to actually buy a property that actually they start managing right now. They purposefully want something 2 or 3 years or 4 years down the line. What I would tell them is we have to look at how you're going to use it. Are you going to use it yourself as strictly an investment? And then in the competitive landscape, depending on which building you buy in what neighborhood, what is your future competition going to be? I mean, for example, if you're in downtown, there's the pros of all of the transformation downtown is going through, but there's the con of you're going to be maybe, over the next 5 years, another 8 or 9 buildings being delivered that are Airbnb condos, right? But then if you go to somewhere like Aventura or Coral Gables, you might have 1 building or 2 buildings. The cities aren't necessarily going through massive transformations because they're very mature, but they're still going up in quality of life and in value and so on.
North Beach as well.
And North Beach as well. So what you have is less competition, and so maybe you go and look at those as something that's a little bit safer in terms of just lower risk and less competition.
Changing gears for a moment to single family market. Single family market, is also very dynamic, changes based on neighborhood. We obviously specialize in condos, but we certainly help a lot of people either move from a single family home downsizing to a condo or vice versa. What are we seeing there, and what specifics are we noticing in terms of neighborhoods or, what's happening?
The advantage of single family homes is that they have not been impacted by these new condo laws because of condos. Right. So there's no 10-year reserve assessment. There's no 25-year milestone. And so you have those advantages. If you compare condo association fees to the cost of owning a home, the cost of maintaining a home, you have, of course, insurance has gone up in single-family homes as well. So you have that. And then in the end, the past few years, everyone everywhere, but especially Miami, there's been a little bit of cost increases with vendors, the lawnmower, the pool guy, all those guys. So certainly condos have taken the brunt of it, but single family homes have that also. And of course, interest rates as well, both condos and single family homes, no matter where you go, if you're getting a mortgage, your interest rates are significantly higher than they were before. And so in single family homes, there's not so much space to build them like in the coastal areas, right? So you have that advantage, as opposed to condos which go vertical and you can build 300 condos in a single lot, versus in single family home, single lot, might be 1, or if they split it up 2, 3, or 4 homes, and that's it. So they have the inventory benefit. If you look at the months of inventory as a data point, I just quickly ran some numbers just to get a sense and a comparison to the condo market. If I went all of Miami-Dade County, we were at around 6 months of inventory, which is a very healthy, balanced market. In South Florida, even potentially seen as just a tad, maybe slight seller's market. And across the nation, usually 6 months is like a balanced market. But in South Florida, months of inventory tends to be more around like 9 months as a balanced market because of a variety of factors we can get into another day. So then you go to 1 million to 2.5 million single family homes, and it goes to, what was it? It was 9 months of inventory. Then you go to $2.5 to $5 million single family homes, and now you're at 18 months of inventory. And then you go over 2.5 million, and you're at 20 months of inventory. Now, 18 months and 20 months of inventory sounds really grave. Like this is a huge problem. Again, when you start going into the higher price points, there's a tendency for those months of inventory numbers to increase. Combination of many of those higher price points are second, third, and fourth homeowners unmotivated to sell. Sellers of that level typically don't need to sell to buy their next place and so on. And because of that, the months of inventory don't give you the same information that the months of inventory of like a sub $1 million property gives you in terms of where the market is.
And I think that's a very key point because, when you move into the higher luxury categories, each step up, it's fairly common that inventory is a little bit higher because of things you're talking about. So it's, again...
The actual inventory is not high. It's quite low, but months of inventory, which is basically a factor of the velocity of sales versus what's existing on the market today, you divide it all together and you come up with the numbers. So, yes. But you're right. It's the months of inventory tends to increase because the velocity of sales is slower, and there as compared to the number of properties that are on the market, because the ones that are on the market are not as motivated as a $500,000 seller wanting to sell because they have to move because of a job or because they need to buy their next place and they need that money to buy it and so on and so forth. So it's a different demographic, different needs, and different needs.
And I think that metric should be interpreted slightly differently, so it's not doom and gloom if you're seeing that or if that's happening in a single family market.
I think you look at also days on market as a big factor as well, on average days on market of the properties that do sell. And I didn't do a lot of number crunching for the single family for that, but I just quickly looked at the Coconut Grove, for example. Coconut Grove, there are 14 months of inventory in Coconut Grove because all the numbers I gave were for all of Dade County. So if you go into like coastal, very well-desired areas, very desirable areas, Coconut Grove is at 14 months of inventory. Coral Gables is at 8 months of inventory. But then if you go into the days on market in Coconut Grove, where it's 14 months of inventory, which seems high, the ones that are selling in around 2 months, which is not a long time as a seller to sit and wait for a buyer. Those were the sellers who are real sellers who actually wanted to sell, and it's not a grave thing. Now, when months of inventory starts increasing and you see it taking 80 days, 100 days, 120 days, and you see that continuously increase, then you get a little worried, and it usually spells a clear path to lower prices.
Just anecdotally, going back to condos, right now we're seeing Coconut Grove and Coral Gables post some of the highest sales numbers, sales prices, and lowest days on market. So that neighborhood, that collective neighborhood is really still very desirable and performing well.
Yeah, because there's not much land to build on. The density, they don't allow high density, high rises. And so they limit construction in general. And so because of that, it's...
Also great schools there.
Great schools, high demand, limited inventory.
Yeah, exactly.
And limited growth in inventory, right? They can't build as fast as they would maybe want, as the developers would want anyway.
And even going back to the premium and ultra luxury product that's new and existing in Coconut Grove, that is also under high demand, but it's in demand, so it's performing very well.
You talked about the numbers that Coconut Grove and Coral Gables is doing very well, and especially Coconut Grove, the condo product they have there is very high end. What we call premium luxury and a little bit of ultra luxury as well. Very common to have 5, 10, 12, $20 million condos there.
Right.
What we're seeing, and for example, one of Park Grove is a good example. Park Grove, you can sometimes find 1 or 2 or 3 properties available at any one time because those that have it love it and keep it, and it might be their primary home, it might be their 4th home. And those that want it, what do they have to do? They have to pay the price that the sellers are asking. And that's why there's so much new premium luxury and ultra luxury product coming on the market, because there's such a high demand for it. And those that have it are not letting it go, especially when there's a really high quality product like Park Grove as an example.
Well, and
there's plenty other high quality product as well, but that's just an example that always comes to mind.
Yeah, and the Four Seasons private residences is now, they launched not too long ago. They were already very well pre-sold. We did a video on that if you want to check that out.
And Rita Groval is almost about to launch.
Exactly.
Actually open up.
Highly selective, very, very, very nice condos that are there because the demand is there, right? In our market prediction video that we did not too long ago, you said we were moving into a buyer's market. So as a seller, what does that mean? We are seeing sellers move into the market right now and list their properties. What should they know? How is this market affecting sellers?
Again, I think it depends on where you're located and the age of your building and so on, as we talked about, and the competitive landscape of your submarket. Generally, as a seller, you'd want to be realistic with your pricing, look at recent comparables, do what you can to differentiate your condo, especially if you have other similar condos out there that people can choose from, so that when they come to your property, they fall in love and pay the premium that you believe you deserve and that you deserve. You're gonna have to have a little bit more patience than before. Days on market are around, depending on what part of the market you're at, anywhere from 70 to 100 days, depending on, again, what part of the market you're at. Some lower, some 45, 60 days again, so it depends. Just know what you're getting yourself, what market you're in, and have the patience you need to have and have the flexibility you need to have. I have sellers calling me and we're going through this, and each case is a little different. I want to sell, but only at my price, and if I don't, then I'll just rent it. And the answer is, well, if that's the case, let's see if we can get your price. If it's pretty clear that we're not going to, then we rent it. And so some are fine with renting and selling. Either one that comes, so we price it that way and we make that happen. You have to have either a special product or you have to be flexible with your price so that you can make it move.
Now, the data from 4Q and annual, I think good news, and this is what makes the market sort of have a little bit of personality, is that the prices have held. They haven't dropped. They actually went up a tiny bit, both fourth quarter, compared to 2023 and annually. So we're having more inventory, right? And prices aren't on that steep incline that we were seeing for a while, but they are holding. So as a buyer, what do I need to know?
Well, it's really good that you brought those up because sometimes it's possible that stats can not always tell the full truth because you have to dig into the little bits and pieces of them. And also, there's also just what we see on the ground and what we're seeing in the sentiment. If you look at certain apples to apples comparisons, you're going to find that there have been some price declines. And then in other apples to apples comparisons, you're going to see price increases. It's hard to point to one thing, but those brackets that we talked about of age brackets of buildings are making an impact. It's really not because of the age itself. It's a combination of the sentiment and what the building is going through in their life cycle of repairs and so on that sometimes impact it. For example, there's a decent number of buildings that are going through pool repairs. Pool repairs take 6 months to a year. Sometimes a bad contractor and you might have 18 months of no pool. The Icon Brickell a few years back, it's, I think, the largest residential pool in the U.S. or the southern hemisphere of the U.S. or southern part of the U.S. or something like that. And that took 2 years, because it's just a massive, massive pool deck. And so when you're a buyer and you're buying into sunny South Florida and they say you can't have a pool, that's going to soften you up on that building temporarily.
Yeah.
So what I would say to both sellers and buyers is we are going through a little period of all of these hiccups from the condo laws, from the construction, from even neighboring construction, because Miami's in a big development life cycle. So and all these things create uncertainties and inconveniences that buyers don't necessarily love. That's a 1 to 2 year issue for the most part. In 2 years from now, 90% of the challenges that we're going through right now are going to go away. And so both for sellers and buyers, for sellers, I'd say if you don't like what you see here, then wait 2-3 years and sell. For buyers, if you're not comfortable buying into a building that's going through construction, just ask a lot of questions. Make sure you're getting into a building that's gotten the major stuff done, and then enjoy the heck out of that building.
Exactly.
Right?
Find your peace. There is peace to be found.
Or use the situation and make offers and get yourself a better price, I suppose.
Let's talk about disruptors. let's talk about what might throw off some of these predictions we have. There's a lot going on in the world right now. We just had a new presidential election. Florida obviously is front and center in this political environment we're in. What do you think could be a disruptor or a, disruptor on the good side?
Absolutely. So going back to before I get into that, the foundations of why South Florida has done so well. Amazing weather, no state income taxes, business-friendly environment, landlord-friendly environment in terms of all the laws and so on. And then you now have, because of that thing, not also, but because of all of those factors, you have Ken Griffith moving Citadel, I think the largest hedge fund in the U.S., moving to Brickell.
And building a building.
And building a high-rise office building on the water. Not common here, right? It's usually a luxury residential building. Tony Robbins just bought a penthouse and a Waldorf Astoria in downtown Miami. Jeff Bezos that moved here a few years ago and is making his mark. And of course, the Kushner and Trump couple living right next to Bezos and so on and so forth. So you have a massive ultra high net worth migration to South Florida. And that's been happening. That was happened before the election. I find this election to be very interesting. Whatever your political leanings, there's just some facts to be discussed. One is, I asked my agents the other day, where is the White House? And I don't want to offend anyone. And of course, the White House, we all know it's in Washington D.C. But the de facto White House is Mar-a-Lago. Where is Mar-a-Lago? South Florida. When you have the most powerful nation and the most wealthy nation in the world, and you have the power structure of that wealthy nation right in your own backyard, it's a magnet. It's a magnet for everyone who seeks to be close to power and everyone whose money matters to them. And politics as well, in general, matters to them. The Secretary of State, Rubio, whether you like him or not, or his politics or not, he's now Secretary of State. He's a Floridian.
He's in Miami.
He's in Miami. Okay, there you go. And so you have a series of other folks that their compass points to Florida. And so that alone is a wild card that we don't know what impact it will make, other than it has to be positive on the real estate market and just generally the business environment in Florida as a whole, but very especially in South Florida.
Right. Sep, I'm pretty much out of questions. I think we've covered a tremendous amount. What else would you like to share with our viewers?
Well, first of all, if you have any questions that we haven't answered, please reach out. I hope that we've uncovered a lot of mysteries that we might have planted into the original 2025 market predictions, and that we got into the answers of the questions you had in your mind. But if you didn't, please feel free to reach out. And of course, if you're looking to navigate this market, you're trying to decide what's next for you, please give us a call. That's what we're here for, and we will guide you the best we can and get you into the right place.
And also, we'll be coming out with a deeper dive on the annual and 4Q stats very soon. So if you're a stats person, watch that. If you have questions, give us a call. Whether you're buying, selling, or renting, we're here to meet whatever needs you have. And we have an international team.
Thank you, Aimee.
Thank you, Sep.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks for watching.